Navāga refers to the teacher's ninefold dispensation, or the master's ninefold teaching within Buddhist literature. In Pali, Nava means 9, Aga means factor or part, and Satthusasana means dispensation or teaching. Together, Navāga represents a comprehensive framework for understanding and practicing the Buddha's teachings. The concept of Navāga is found in various Buddhist texts and traditions, including the Pali Canon, Mahayana Sutras, and commentaries. It represents a systematic approach to the Buddha's teachings, organizing them into 9 essential factors or categories. While the specific interpretation of Navāga may vary depending on the tradition or school of Buddhism, it typically includes the following components. Sutta is a term used in Buddhism to refer to discourses or teachings attributed to the Buddha. In Pali, the language in which the earliest Buddhist scriptures were written, sutta literally means thread or line, implying a thread of wisdom or insight running through the text. Suttas are one of the main categories of Buddhist scriptures, alongside the Vinaya, monastic rules, and Abhidhamma, philosophical and psychological analysis. The suttas contain the recorded teachings of the Buddha and his disciples, covering a wide range of topics related to ethics, meditation, wisdom, and the nature of reality. They were initially passed down orally by the early monastic community and later written down in various collections. There are several collections of suttas in the different Buddhist traditions, the most famous of which are the Pali Canon Tipitaka, the oldest and most complete collection of Buddhist scriptures, preserved in the Pali language. It is divided into 3 main sections: the Vinaya Pitaka, basket of monastic discipline, the Sutta Pitaka, basket of discourses, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka, basket of higher teachings. The Chinese Canon, Tripitaka, a vast collection of Buddhist scriptures translated into Chinese over many centuries. It includes texts from various Buddhist traditions, including Mahayana, Theravada, and Vajrayana. The Tibetan Canon, Kangyo and Tengyo. The Tibetan Buddhist Canon contains translations of Indian Buddhist texts into Tibetan, including sutras, tantras, and commentaries. The Kangyo comprises the words of the Buddha, while the Tengyo contains treatises by Indian Buddhist masters. Suttas vary in length and style, ranging from brief verses to elaborate discourses. They often begin with a setting describing the occasion on which the teaching was given, followed by the discourse itself. The teachings cover a wide array of subjects, including ethics, meditation techniques, the nature of reality, the path to liberation, and the workings of karma. Suttas play a central role in Buddhist practice and study, serving as a source of inspiration, guidance, and insight for practitioners. They are studied, recited, and expounded upon in monasteries, temples, and meditation centers around the world, helping to preserve the Buddha's teachings and pass them down to future generations. Gaya refers to a specific genre of discourses within Buddhist literature that are mixed with verses or songs. In Pali, the language of the earliest Buddhist scriptures, Gaya means to be sung or suitable for singing. These discourses combine prose with poetic verses, creating a rhythmic and melodious form of teaching. Gaya texts can be found within the Sutta Pitaka, basket of discourses of the Pali Canon, which is the collection of teachings attributed to the Buddha. They are characterized by their lyrical style and often incorporate verses to emphasize key points or teachings. The use of verses or songs in Gaya discourses serves several purposes. Memorization. The rhythmic and repetitive nature of verses makes them easier to memorize, allowing the teachings to be passed down orally from one generation to another. This was particularly important in ancient times, when texts were transmitted orally before being written down. Emphasis. Verses are often used to highlight important teachings or key insights within the discourse. They serve as mnemonic devices, helping listeners to remember the essential points of the teaching. Aesthetic appeal. The inclusion of verses adds a poetic an aesthetic dimension to the discourse, making it more engaging and enjoyable for listeners. The rhythmic quality of the verses can enhance the overall impact of the teaching. Examples of Gaya texts within the Pali Canon include the Dhammapada, the Udana, and the Itivataka. These texts contain a mix of prose and verses, with each verse conveying a profound teaching or insight. The Dhammapada, in particular, is one of the most well-known Gaya texts, consisting of 423 verses organized into 26 chapters, each addressing a different aspect of the Buddha's teachings. Overall, Gaya discourses represent a unique and engaging form of teaching within Buddhist literature, combining prose with poetry to convey the timeless wisdom of the Buddha's teachings in a memorable and impactful way. Vyakarana refers to a genre of prose expositions within Buddhist literature. In Pali, Vyakarana means explanation or elucidation. These expositions are characterized by their detailed and systematic explanations of various aspects of Buddhist doctrine, practice, and philosophy. Vyakarana texts can be found within the Abhidhamma Pitaka of the Pali Canon, which is the collection of texts that provides a detailed analysis and classification of Buddhist teachings. They serve as commentaries on the Buddha's discourses suttas, and as systematic treatises on topics such as psychology, metaphysics, and ethics. The Vyakarana texts are written in prose and are known for their rigorous and analytical approach to the teachings. They often present complex philosophical ideas and doctrinal concepts in a clear and systematic manner, making them accessible to scholars and practitioners alike. Examples of Vyakarana texts within the Pali Canon include the Abhidhamma Pitaka. This entire collection can be considered a Vyakarana text, as it consists of detailed analyses and classifications of various aspects of Buddhist doctrine, including the nature of consciousness, mental factors, and the process of cognition. The Visuddhimagga, Path of Purification, written by the Theravada Buddhist scholar Buddhaghosa in the 5th century CE. This text is a comprehensive manual on Buddhist meditation and practice. It provides detailed instructions on various meditation techniques, stages of spiritual development, and the attainment of enlightenment. The Athasalini Expositor, also known as the Book of Exposition. This text is a commentary on the Dhammasagani, the first book of the Abhidhamma Pitaka. It provides explanations and elaborations on the categories and classifications of mental and physical phenomena found in the Abhidhamma. Vyakarana texts play a crucial role in deepening understanding and insight into the Buddha's teachings. They provide systematic frameworks for interpreting and applying the teachings in various contexts, helping practitioners to deepen their practice and realization of the Dharma. Gatha refers to verses or poetic compositions within Buddhist literature. The term originates from Sanskrit and Pali, where it means song or verse. Gathas are found throughout Buddhist scriptures and are used to convey teachings, stories, and insights in a concise and memorable form. Gathas serve several purposes within Buddhist literature. Memorization. The rhythmic and melodic nature of verses makes them easier to memorize and recite. This was particularly important in ancient times when texts were transmitted orally, and memorization was the primary means of preserving and transmitting teachings. Teaching. Gathas are used to convey important teachings, principles, and stories within Buddhist scriptures. They often encapsulate key insights or moral lessons in a succinct and memorable form, making them accessible to both laypeople and monastics. Devotional practice. Gathas are used as objects of devotion and meditation in Buddhist practice. Reciting verses, chanting, or singing gathas can help practitioners cultivate mindfulness, concentration, and a sense of connection to the teachings. Rituals and ceremonies. Gathas are often recited or chanted as part of Buddhist rituals, ceremonies, and religious observances. They may accompany offerings, blessings, or other rituals, serving to inspire and uplift participants. Examples of gathas can be found throughout Buddhist scriptures, including the Pali Canon, Mahayana Sutras, and Tibetan Buddhist texts. Some well-known examples include the Diamond Sutra. This Mahayana sutra contains numerous verses that emphasize the principles of emptiness, shunyata, and non-attachment. The famous verse form is emptiness. Emptiness is form, is found in this text. The Heart Sutra. Another important Mahayana sutra, the Heart Sutra, is known for its concise and profound verses that expound the teachings of emptiness and the perfection of wisdom prajnaparamita. Overall, gathas are an integral part of Buddhist literature and practice, serving as vehicles for conveying teachings, inspiring devotion, and deepening understanding and insight into the Dharma. Udana refers to a genre of Buddhist literature that consists of exclamations, psalms, or verses of uplift. In Pali, Udana means inspired utterance or exclamation. The Udana texts are found within the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is a collection of miscellaneous texts in the Pali Canon. Udana texts typically consist of short passages in verse form, each describing a specific event or experience that led the Buddha or one of his disciples to exclaim in joy, inspiration, or realization. These verses often express deep spiritual insights, moments of awakening, or profound realizations of the nature of reality. The Udana texts serve several purposes within Buddhist literature and practice. Inspiration. The verses of the Udana are intended to inspire and uplift practitioners by conveying the profound experiences of the Buddha and his disciples. They serve as reminders of the potential for awakening and liberation within all beings. Teaching. Each Udana passage is accompanied by a prose commentary that provides context and explanation for the verse. These commentaries elucidate the teachings contained within the verse and help practitioners to understand their significance. Contemplation. Udana verses can be used as objects of contemplation in meditation practice. Practitioners may reflect on the meaning and implications of the verses, using them as a source of inspiration and insight on the path to awakening. Devotional practice. The Udana texts are often recited or chanted as part of Buddhist rituals, ceremonies, and devotional practices. The verses serve to evoke a sense of reverence and awe for the Buddha and his teachings, fostering a deeper connection to the spiritual path. Examples of Udana passages include the Udana Vagga. This section of the Udana contains 80 verses attributed to the Buddha, each describing a specific event or experience that led to his exclamation of joy or insight. Overall, the Udana texts are a rich source of inspiration and spiritual wisdom within the Buddhist tradition, offering glimpses into moments of profound realization and awakening experienced by the Buddha and his disciples. They serve as reminders of the transformative power of the Dharma and the potential for liberation inherent in human life. Itivataka is a collection of discourses in the Khuddaka Nikaya, which is a division of the Pali Canon, the foundational scripture of Theravada Buddhism. The title Itivataka can be translated as "thus said" or "thus it was said," indicating that each discourse begins with the phrase Itivatam in Pali, meaning "thus it was heard." The Itivataka consists of 112 short discourses, each attributed to the Buddha. These discourses are presented as direct quotations from the Buddha, as relayed by his disciples. They cover a wide range of topics related to Buddhist doctrine, practice, ethics, and meditation. The Itivataka is unique among the texts of the Pali Canon, in that it presents the teachings of the Buddha in a poetic and lyrical style. Each discourse is composed in verse form, making them particularly memorable and conducive to contemplation and recitation. The discourses of the Itivataka are organized into 4 chapters, each containing discourses on different themes. The first chapter. This chapter contains discourses on the importance of the Dharma, the qualities of a true disciple, and the benefits of practicing the Dharma. The second chapter contains discourses on ethical conduct, including teachings on the practice of generosity, kindness, and moral integrity. The third chapter contains discourses on the nature of reality, including teachings on impermanence, suffering, non-self, and the law of karma. The fourth chapter contains discourses on the practice of meditation and the development of insight, including teachings on mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. The Itivataka is highly regarded in Theravada Buddhist tradition for its clarity, elegance, and profundity. It presents the core teachings of the Buddha in a concise and accessible manner, making it a valuable resource for both beginners and experienced practitioners. The Itivataka serves as a source of inspiration and guidance for those seeking to deepen their understanding and practice of the Dharma. Its poetic and lyrical style invites contemplation and reflection, helping practitioners to integrate the teachings into their daily lives and spiritual practice. Jataka. The Jataka tales are a collection of stories from the Pali Canon. The term Jataka means birth in Pali, referring to the stories of the Buddha's past lives before he attained enlightenment. These tales recount the Buddha's previous existences, where he was reborn in various forms, including as humans, animals, gods, and even mythical beings. The Jataka tales serve several purposes within Buddhist tradition: moral and ethical instruction. Each Jataka tale typically conveys a moral or ethical lesson, based on the actions and choices of the characters. These stories often illustrate the consequences of virtuous behavior, such as generosity, kindness, and selflessness, as well as the pitfalls of unwholesome qualities like greed, hatred, and delusion. Devotional practice. The Jataka tales are often recited or retold as part of Buddhist rituals, ceremonies, and devotional practices. They serve to inspire devotion to the Buddha and his teachings by highlighting his qualities of wisdom, compassion, and virtue across countless lifetimes. Psychological and spiritual insight. The Jataka tales provide insight into the workings of karma and the nature of samsara. They illustrate how past actions and intentions shape future experiences, and how individuals can progress on the path to enlightenment through virtuous conduct and spiritual development. Cultural and literary significance. The Jataka tales have had a profound influence on Buddhist art, literature, and culture throughout history. They have been depicted in various forms, including sculpture, painting, theatre, and literature, and have inspired countless artists, writers, and practitioners over the centuries. The Jataka tales are traditionally divided into two main collections. The Theravada Jataka. This collection contains 547 stories, which are found in the Khuddaka Nikaya of the Pali Canon. Each Jataka tale begins with a prologue describing the circumstances in which the Buddha recounted the story, and ends with a verse summarizing the moral lesson. The Mahayana Jataka. This collection contains additional Jataka stories that are found in Mahayana Buddhist literature, particularly in the Yatakamala, Garland of Birth Stories, attributed to the Indian scholar Ayurshura. These stories often feature bodhisattvas, future Buddhas, who demonstrate compassion and wisdom in their various incarnations. Overall, the Jataka tales are a rich and diverse treasure trove of wisdom, compassion, and insight within Buddhist literature. They offer valuable lessons for practitioners on the path to awakening and serve as a source of inspiration and guidance for all who seek to cultivate virtue, wisdom, and compassion in their lives. Abhuta Dharma refers to marvelous or extraordinary phenomena, occurrences, or ideas within Buddhist teachings. In Pali, Abhuta means marvelous or extraordinary, and Dharma can refer to various meanings, including teaching, phenomenon, or law. Together, Abhuta Dharma encompasses teachings, stories, or concepts that are perceived as remarkable or beyond ordinary understanding. The concept of Abhuta Dharma is found throughout Buddhist literature and serves several purposes, illustrating supernatural powers. In Buddhist tradition, particularly in the Theravada and Mahayana schools, enlightened beings such as Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and highly attained practitioners are said to possess supernormal powers, ED, or psychic abilities. These abilities, which include telepathy, clairvoyance, levitation, and others, are considered Abhuta Dharma and are depicted in various scriptures and teachings. Teaching through parables and metaphors. The Buddha often used parables, metaphors, and allegories to convey profound teachings in a memorable and accessible way. These stories may include fantastical or miraculous elements that serve to illustrate deeper truths about the nature of reality, the workings of karma, or the path to liberation, encouraging faith and devotion. Stories of miraculous events or encounters with enlightened beings can inspire faith and devotion in practitioners. These accounts highlight the power and presence of the Dharma and the transformative potential of spiritual practice. Challenging conventional understanding. Abhuta Dharma can challenge conventional views of reality and push the boundaries of ordinary understanding by encountering stories or teachings that defy rational explanation. Practitioners are encouraged to question their assumptions and explore the limits of their conceptual frameworks. Examples of Abhuta Dharma can be found throughout Buddhist scriptures and literature, including the Mahayana Sutras. Mahayana Buddhist texts, such as the Lotus Sutra or the Avatamsaka Sutra, contain accounts of bodhisattvas demonstrating supernormal powers or engaging in otherworldly activities to benefit sentient beings. The Vinaya Pitaka, the Vinaya or monastic code, contains accounts of the Buddha and his disciples performing miraculous feats or displaying psychic abilities as part of their spiritual practice. Overall, Abhuta Dharma represents a fascinating aspect of Buddhist teachings that challenges and expands our understanding of reality, encouraging practitioners to explore the depths of wisdom and compassion on the path to awakening. Vedala refers to a type of question and answer or catechetical format found in certain Buddhist texts, particularly within the Pali Canon. In Pali, Vedala means question or interrogation. These texts are structured as dialogues between a questioner and the respondent, often the Buddha or one of his disciples, in which profound teachings are elucidated through a series of inquiries and responses. The Vedala texts serve several purposes within Buddhist literature and practice. Clarification of doctrine. The question and answer format allows for a systematic exploration of Buddhist teachings, doctrines, and principles. Through the process of inquiry and response, complex concepts are clarified, elaborated upon, and applied to various situations or contexts. Instructional tool. Vedala texts are often used as instructional tools for teaching and learning the Dharma. They provide a structured framework for presenting key teachings and concepts, making them accessible and understandable to both beginners and advanced practitioners. Engagement with doubt and inquiry. The Vedala format encourages practitioners to engage critically with the teachings, ask questions, and seek clarification on points of confusion or doubt. The process of questioning and inquiry is seen as an essential aspect of the spiritual path, leading to deeper understanding and insight. Transmission of oral tradition. In ancient India, oral transmission was the primary means of preserving and transmitting religious teachings and knowledge. The Vedala format reflects this oral tradition, where teachings were conveyed through dialogue, discussion, and debate between teacher and student. Examples of Vedala texts within the Pali Canon include the Stulavedala Sutta and the Mahavadala Sutta. These suttas are found in the Majjhima Nikaya middle-length discourses of the Pali Canon. They feature dialogues between the Buddha and a wanderer named Vakagata, who asks the Buddha a series of questions about the nature of existence, the self, and the path to liberation. The Chilasachika Sutta and the Mahasatyoka Sutta. These suttas are also found in the Majjhima Nikaya and feature dialogues between the Buddha and the ascetic Satjoka. Satjoka challenges the Buddha with various philosophical questions, and the Buddha responds with teachings on the nature of suffering, its cessation, and the path to liberation. Overall, Vedanta texts provide a valuable framework for exploring and elucidating the teachings of the Buddha, fostering inquiry, dialogue, and understanding on the path to awakening.